each of these could be kind of like their own message. Don't worry, we're not going to do that. But I do want you to see each one of these pieces, they do sort of fit together. It's not going to be like a nice, neat little bow at the end where you go, oh, okay, I see. There's thematic overlap that's important that you need to see and you need to hear and you need to interact with. But they're all kind of their own little thing. And they're invitational. What I mean by that is I feel like my job today is to walk you through and introduce you to these things right now. Like, see, the timing of these things is God's doing, and circumstantially or whatever, things happen. But we're going to run into these stories right now. There's 3 different stories. They all sort of relate, but you might not really relate to all 3 of them right now. Right now, as we go through these, one of these might jump out to you. And then what you need to do is say, go back to that one. Because you might be like the first set of people, you might be like the second guy, or the third guy. And if one of those things kind of stopped, you go, yeah, I kind of feel like that's me right now. Take a minute, hold on to that, and go back to it later today, later in the week, and pray about it. Because this is God's word. And I'm introducing you to parts of it. Parts of this you all know, but we're reintroducing ourselves right now to this. And then God will speak to you, specifically to you, from his word. That's how it works. But I want to make sure that you know that's the approach today. There are kind of 2 overarching questions that we could continually be asking as we go through this. What do you see? Or what do we see? When you look around, what do you see? When you look at the world, what do you see? When you look on Facebook, God forbid, what do you see? Do you see hopeful? Are you hopeful? Are you more hopeful when you get on the thing, Do you feel less good about the world when you read the news? Like this kind of thing. What do you see when you look? What do you see? And what are you looking for? Going back to the Facebook or news, like, what am I even here for? What am I looking for? This kind of thing. And I mean, I'm picking on I will always be picking on Facebook and stuff, but I use it for the marketplace thing too, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But what are we looking for? In that case, I go in there to look for vibraphones that people are selling. It's few and far between, but they do exist every once in a while. But the point is, what are you looking for? What do you see and what are you looking for? And you can ask that in all these things. So we're going to go through this. And it's going to hit the ground running in kind of an interesting way. Verse 31 of chapter 18, Jesus took the 12 disciples aside and told them. So it's his 12 main guys, right? So if you're one of the 12 disciples, you're one of the main guys that Jesus has now said, you are the guys to follow me. You're the closest. You know the most. You've seen the most. You've been involved in the most. And sometimes you hear him talking to everybody else, and then sometimes he's talking to us, okay? So maybe today you feel like one of these disciples, okay, as I'm going through this. He took the 12 aside and told them this. We are going to Jerusalem. We're closing in on the end of the book. We're going to the end of the part. We're finishing this thing up. We're going to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. That's like, sweet. That's awesome. We've been waiting a long time. It's about time this kind of stuff. So this is really exciting that I get to be one of the 12 people closest to this thing that Jesus is about to do. The whole Old Testament, all these prophetic books, it's all happening right now. I'm in the front row seat. Awesome. Great. Jesus goes, okay, continuing. All of this will be fulfilled. He's talking about himself, will be delivered over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, and spit on him. They will flog him and kill him, and on the 3rd day he will rise again. And you're like, what? What did you just say? The disciples did not understand any of this. Its meaning was hidden from them. They did not know what he was talking about. So have you ever, you ever have that thing where you're like, I want God to just tell me straight. Like, what do... Hello? Tell me straight, what's going on here with this? Just tell me what's going on. Here's an example where he does that. To the closest guys, he tells them literally straight up, and they go, what? What? We all think, just tell me, I'll get it. Okay, here it is. What? This is important. Because what does he tell them? He tells them about the cross. As Christian people, this is the central action that Jesus does as God on earth for the sake of humanity, that we worship him for and that we celebrate him for. And it was a change from things beforehand. Remember? There's a new covenant now. Go read Hebrews. This is a new thing going on. It's not like this plan, you're going to go hand it over to the Gentiles. They're going to ridicule him and spit on him, and they're going to even kill him, but he's going to rise again. This is the key piece. It's like they're going to do all the bad. They're going to do all the sin that they can do to me. And the ultimate thing, they're going to kill me. But I'm going to rise again, showing you, like, you ain't got nothing on me. I can do, But he's going to go through it. They're like, I don't understand. And then he also tells them, he's like, this is a new thing I'm doing, but it's not like a change of plan. He's not like going, that Old Testament, we're going to write a new one, so don't worry about that. He's like, no, all of this stuff is what I'm doing. It's been the plan the whole time. There's other scriptures that say, slain, the Lamb of God slain before the foundation of the earth. This is mysterious stuff. This is not like God goes, I had a thing I was doing, and it didn't work out. So I tried something else, and then that didn't work out. So I tried something else, and that didn't work out. So now I'm going to do this. That's not how this is going. God knows what he's doing all the time. We're catching on. This is a good posture to have. So he tells them, one is he's telling them about the cross. Two, he's telling them it's from the scriptures. It's what was going on the whole time. But it wasn't what they were expecting. Okay? Because most people, as we talked about before, because we've been going through this for a while, but just a little recap in case you haven't been here. When they say, like, Jesus is the Messiah, they're like, that's the king. That's the long-awaited king, the chosen one. You hear this in movies now. They kind of stole all this from, the Bible. It's like, he's the chosen one. He's the one that's going to, restore the balance to the force or something. Like this is all just ripped off from. And so he's like, he's going to do that thing, the long-awaited thing. It's finally happening. And what people thought that was going to look like was, because, Israel had a story of being in their land and then being occupied and then taken away and then this and that and then kings would rise up and throw out the bad guys. Like, we're going to get this back, all this kind of thing. And so people thought, okay, well, Rome's doing that to us now. And among other things, what this Messiah person will finally do, like King David, and there's lots of language in the prophets about how he's on the throne of David, and he's like David. There's a lot of David, so much David that it even says David will do this, and it's talking about Jesus. Like, you see what I'm saying? That's how David-y it is. So they're like, yeah, I've read the David stuff. He kicks out all the bad guys. This is great. Killing giants and the whole bit. And so Jesus comes in. He's like, yes, I'm doing that. And they go, great, let's go do it. We're going to Jerusalem to really do it, And he's like, here's what it's going to look like. And they're like, that's not on the, this is not on the menu, We're going to come back to this, but just remember him telling straight. Told him straight. And the result was confusion. And it says they couldn't see it. It uses this language again. What do you see? I talked about that. It was hidden from them. And I think this is a translational thing. Don't think of God being like, I will hide this from you. There's a was and a hidden. It's very passive sounding. It's kind of how you say, like, I don't get it. They didn't get it. Okay? Just like oftentimes, I don't get it. You don't get it. What God is doing, okay? It's important. But we'll come back to that. So going right to the next story. So that one's like, hey, guys, here's straight up what I'm about to do. And then, what? And then we move on, okay? So they're on the way to Jerusalem. They go through Jericho. Some of you remember Jericho. This is Joshua fought the battle of Jericho. They rebuilt parts of it. And there's people living there again, Still there now. So they go through, passing through Jericho. And a blind man was sitting along the side of the road. Remember? Can't see. So what does he see? Nothing, right? Can't see. He's sitting along the side of the road begging. And when he heard a crowd, he was asking, what's happening? Like, I can hear there's something going on. I can't see it. So you got to tell me what's going on. They say, oh, that Jesus guy, he's passing by. And he's like, hold up. You mean the guy who's healing blind people? I'm like, yeah, whatever, I guess. And he's like, hello? So he calls out, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. And they're all like, oh, yeah, I get it. You right, of course. No. They go, stop. That's bothersome. You're bothering me. And when it says, those who led the way, there's like the same disciple-y group, okay? They're they're walking with Jesus, like, make way for Jesus. He's like, Jesus, have mercy on me. He's like, no, get out of the way, beggar man. You are interrupting our thing. They say, like, no. And the other version has this longer, the parallel version in Matthew, I think. It's like, he's like, okay, I'll shout louder then. You're not helpful. Like, he can't see, but he hears somebody like, stop. He's like, get out of my face. I don't know. I don't need this, He's like, I'm getting to Jesus because Jesus is going to help me, I think, or at least I've heard. And then Jesus stops. Jesus stopped and ordered the man brought to him. And then the other one, the group kind of goes, all right, he's calling for you, you know, like so the people who should be in on the thing are the ones stopping it. And it echoes, remember earlier, like, get the kids out of here, you know. And Jesus is like, no, let the kids come to me. You need even learn from these kids. And he's like, no, get these guys out of here, you know. Again, this guy's like, I'm calling out to Jesus. I need help. Please stop. You're ruining the moment here, you know. And but Jesus looks at him in the face. He says, what do you want me to do? Now, there's a thing where, like, the guy can't see yet, but you're trying to get Jesus' attention. You're screaming out, calling out, da, 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 and then all of a sudden, he calls to you, but then you're there, and he says, what is it you want me to do for you? Some of you are this guy. And some of you might feel when he finally puts it there, you go, I don't know. I think that's part of why he asks this. It's a little bit rhetorical and kind of obvious also with this guy in this situation because we know the ending. You know, if it's just like, hey, a guy is calling out to Jesus, you know, we go like, well, what do you know? It's broader than just a blind guy, but he can't see. But he doesn't get like, Jesus, what the heck? Like, obviously, what do you think I'm doing? You know, he says, I would like for you to give me sight, please. He answers him. So some of you need to stay in that moment. If Jesus looked you in the face, he's like, what do you want me to do for you? Do you actually have an answer to that? Remember I said, what are you seeing? What are you looking for? What are you looking for? So you might have to come back to that yourself. He says, Lord, I want to see. I like that phrasing because he's not telling him how to do it. He's like, I don't really know what you do. I want to see. Which is even more specific than just my eyes work. Or you see what I'm saying? I want to see. It's even more primal or basic than I would like my eyes to where I have these cataracts or you see what I mean? Like sometimes we get very technical about. He's like, I want to see. Jesus said to him, receive your sight, your faith has healed you. Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus, praising God. Now that guy was cringe right then, all right? He was cringe calling out to Jesus, and then afterwards he's praising Jesus. He's cringe too, okay? But everybody saw it and praised God, so they were cringed along with him like nobody cared anymore. They're not being like, the forward part when they say like, please stop, you're annoying everyone, turns into this really celebration because they're finally for real about who Jesus is and what he's doing, which is why we're here, you know what I mean? Like, so, I'm skipping this because it doesn't matter. So our first group of guys, the disciples who are the closest, that should see what Jesus is doing. They should get what Jesus, they have the most likely chance to understand. Jesus tells them straight, and they can't see it. Then we immediately get into a guy who can't see, but he knows he can't see, and he knows Jesus will help him see, so he calls out to Jesus, and Jesus gives him his sight, and he leaves seeing, and everybody's praising God. So we're starting to see a thing developing here. What do you see? What are you looking for? And then we go into this next story. Still in Jericho. So Jesus entered Jericho. See, the other one's like on the way or like right outside. Dudes hanging out saying, please, you know. Now we're in Jericho. And when Jesus was passing through, and a man there by the name of Zacchaeus, he was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Okay? He wanted to see who Jesus was. Remember, what are you looking for? Dude was wanting to see who Jesus was. Okay? But he was short. Technicalities. He could not see over the crowd. So he gave up and went home. No, he did not do that. That was a little edit for humor. He doesn't stop. He's like, I know what I'll do because I want to see who Jesus is, just like the other guy. Jesus, have mercy on me. And they're like, please stop. This is embarrassing all of us. This guy's like, I'd like to see who this Jesus guy is, but too short, and we'll get to it, but he's like, everybody kind of doesn't like me. He's like, I know what I'll do. I'll climb a tree so I can see. So he climbs up. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. Since Jesus was coming that way, he reached the spot and he looked up and said to Jesus reached the spot and looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So Zacchaeus, just a little bit of context, which they're leading there. He was a chief tax collector and wealthy. So like the government, the Roman government, they would hire these people. Some of y'all watch The Chosen, you see a little bit how this works. They'd have local guys do the dirty work to get the money out of people. And they didn't really as long as you give us the money we need. See what I'm saying? Like, so these tax collector guys were like the Godfather. They're like Vito Corleone, but not like maybe some of the other guys, They'd be like, sometime I come on, I need you to do. So they would take you owe Rome 90 whatever, and they would just be like, hold on, you owe Rome 100. What do you think the other 10 went to? Our wealthy friend here. And the other thing is, you think everybody else knew he was doing it? Yeah. They're like, this is a small town. They're like, this guy's a jerk. This guy's a bad guy who takes our money. And he has this Roman military occupation to enforce it on all of us. So he's a crook. He's a bad dude. And whatever. He's a loser. Like, we all hate him, okay? Well, that guy, we just know because we have the inside scoop, he wants to see who Jesus is. And he's rich. So again, he's the Godfather, right? Have enough of you seen The Godfather that that's still irrelevant? He's like a gangster, you know what I mean? So he's, dignified, right? Or whatever. He's rich. And you don't make fun of this guy because he might have you dealt with. You see what I'm saying? This is how this stuff worked. It wasn't like people were really cool back then and then we got weird after. No, like people were ruthless. These people would hurt people, kill people, all about money, just like how things are now. They even had drugs and stuff. So this is the culture we're talking about. Chief drug dealer, whatever. Whoever's controlling parts of society in an illegal and immoral and cruel way in a small part of a town or something. This is a chief guy, though, so he's a big deal guy. You should be afraid of him. If you piss him off, he could have you killed, okay? But he wants to see who Jesus is. So he does this undignified thing of climbing up a tree to look. Because he's like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe he knows deep down inside that what he's doing is really fake and empty. And he's finally got all the stuff, and it's meaningless. And he can't tell anybody that because they might revolt. But he knows. So he's like, I want to see what this Jesus guy's actually talking about. Not this game. What is the real deal? So he creeps the website. Like, maybe I can go on YouTube and check out a few of these Jesus things. No one will know that I'm on there, Maybe I can sneak on and watch a church service. I don't have to tell everybody. So if you're watching online, welcome. We'll tell you about Jesus. And he's not asking your permission either. So he climbs a tree and thinks he can just creep on it to see what's going on. Maybe I'll see him heal a guy. Maybe this is real, because I just heard he healed a blind dude outside the town. You don't think people talk about that? He heard that. It was like yesterday or 30 minutes ago. I don't know. It's like blind dude seeing. I know that guy, So now that guy's he's like, okay, so let me check this out. My life looks like it's whatever, but it's crap, and I'm going to check this out. And so he climbs up a tree thinking, I'll just hide. Nobody's, whatever. I'm in the back. I'm up my tree. Hey, look, I can use this. So he's like, I didn't plan this. This is freestyle. So he's up there, and so he's up there, and then Jesus is walking by, and he's like, okay, I can see this. This is interesting. And then all of a sudden he stops, and he turns and looks at him, and then everybody, just like you guys, is looking at me, and you're like, this is not how I planned for this to go. Hey, what's up? And then Jesus says this really interesting thing to him. Hold on. Apparently my thumbprint doesn't work. So Jesus stops, looks at him, which means everybody else is looking at him. He's like, I'm in the tree, And they say, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. So, okay, first off, dude knows your name. Wake up, He didn't go, I've heard of you. He's like, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. This is what I was meaning about him not asking your permission. You can creep on Jesus and just look, but if you actually encounter Jesus, he doesn't just go, I'll be your bestest friend. I'll be your co-pilot. He's like, no, you move out of the way. I'm the pilot now, We'll get into that. That's a distraction. But so everybody thought This is great. Jesus is reaching out to the worst of us to bring healing and salvation to our community. Right? That's what everybody said. They thought it was so awesome that Jesus even loved the sinners in their midst, right? No, sorry, they didn't. Again, all the people, including the disciples, saw this and began to mutter. Mutter. That feels like a British word, doesn't it? Mutter. We could have Dalton come read just that word. They began to mutter. He has gone to be the guest of a sinner. They're like, Jesus, do you know who this guy is? Answer, yes. But this is the situation. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And then he said, and if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. That's not even like Levitically right. This is over-the-top crazy stuff, Because there are things in the Bible, in the Old Testament, again, remember Jesus, all these things are being fulfilled. There's like, hey, if you steal something from somebody, you need to pay back, but you also need to pay a little extra. There's ways, this is not what that is. This is like, out of my own heart, I'll give them way more. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man, too, is a son of Abraham. He's like, you guys had decided this guy was a loser. You guys had decided, because he was a bad guy. Like, no defending this guy. It's not like going, well, you took it too hard that he had your dad killed because he didn't pay him. Like, no, this is a bad dude. You have to really step into this. Actually, bad person. The worst person you can think of right now, take a minute. That's him. But he encounters Jesus, and it changes everything. And Jesus says, salvation has come to this house because this man, too, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man, that's code for Jesus. So he's talking about himself again. He says, so Jesus came to seek and save the lost. But those guys close to him kind of didn't like it when it happened. So I want to close now. So Kayla, you can come on up here. So a little recap. We had 3 different stories. One of the disciples think they can probably see. I get what God's doing, right? You feel like you get what God's doing sometimes? Like, I get it. I see how the world works. I've heard a lot of language in the last couple of weeks about a battle between good and evil. That's language that says you think you see what's going on. God's doing this with that. And I'll tell you this just personally. If I've learned anything from the fallout of the IHOP Kansas City thing, is that talking like that needs to be like dialed way down. Because none of us fully know what God is doing. You can give a testimony to what God has done. I can give a testimony to what God has done in my life. That's what a lot of these songs are, they're testimony. But look at the global picture and say, God is doing this, and God is doing that, is more in the headspace of how these disciples were. And we find out when Jesus says, okay, you want to know what I'm doing? I'm doing this. And they go, what? Okay, so then the second story is a guy who knows he can't see. I know I can't see, and I would like to. He comes to Jesus, and Jesus is like, boom, we're good. And then there's another guy who knows he's a bad dude, like the worst. He just wants to see who Jesus, what does it say, who Jesus was? I think that's, let me go back up. He wanted to see who Jesus was. So he's maybe not even like fully like committed. I just want to see who he is, And he leaves saved too. What do you see? What are you looking for? We think we know what God's going to do. We think we know how he's going to end our enemies. You know what I mean? And Jesus kind of is like, yeah, that's what I'm here to do. But your real enemies, not this flesh and blood, is not those guys. I'm here to save those guys. I want to end the real enemies. Because when Jesus lays out that thing he's going to do, it's terrible. No shortcuts. They're never shortcuts. But the end, he's like, then they kill me. Ultimate end. Ultimate fail. then he's like, and then I come back. Because what are they going to do? He's like, they're not in charge anymore. They talk about taking back, this is biblical language, taking back the keys of sin and death, which means where sin, lock, death, lock. You can't do anything about it. Jesus is like, now I got that. And guess what I might do? Seek it, save the lost. So he says, yeah, I am going to deal with the enemies, but the real enemies. And we go, yeah, so like by defeating them with like massive military flexing and like, yeah, we're going to show these people. He's like, no, by giving up my life for the sake of them, for the sake of many. We're like, okay, but then you do that so that we can like flex like that, right? And like own things, own the Gentiles through displays of mighty power, proving that we're right because we're on your side, right? And he's like, no, so you can take up your cross and do the same thing I'm doing, giving up your life for other people. I'm pulling from the things we've talked about over the last couple weeks. I know you can hear those things. Because he's here to seek and save the lost. He's like, the stuff I'm here to do. He's like, I want to tell you about the stuff I'm here to do. Here's what it is. What? He goes, I'll show you. And as he's showing them, they're like, get out of here, dude. This is not your time. And he's like, this is his time. And there's this other guy, he's like, he only knew who was looking at the tree. And he was like, hey, dude, I'm coming to your house. You're going to his house? What? So in a way like the disciples, we can be, or we are at times, blind to what Jesus is really doing. Not entirely. The disciples aren't dumb. They're just like us. It's a warning that we don't think that just because we're with Jesus, that we automatically have everything figured out. That whole world thing I was just talking about. Or that Jesus agrees with every single thing I think. Or every single thing you think. As we said before. When we say, when you do the what would Jesus do bracelet, he never disagrees with you, you're making that up. That's an imaginary friend. Or AI. You're right. No, you're not. Sometimes you're not, Or, I'm skipping that, it's confusing. And here's the main thing. No, I'm skipping all this, it's just junk. It's okay that we don't understand everything. It's okay that we can't see everything. And a lot of people that talk like they do, they actually don't. I'm saying that from experience. And usually when people talk like that, they're benefiting from it in some way. And they're leading us to be more blind than seeing clearer. And there's certain kinds of blindness that can come over us. Religious blindness, where we look down on other people all the time. Judgmentalism, There's a current blindness that's happening right now a lot in our country where people are blind to the fact that their faith and their politics are becoming one thing. Not that there's not a relationship. There most certainly is a relationship, but they're different. They're not the same thing. And if you've started to lose grip on the difference between those two things, you might be getting blinder, not seeing clearer. And it's time to pause, reflect. And when Jesus says to you, what do you want? You say, I want to see. And I'm not going to tell you what the end result of that is, because I don't actually know. I just know I can see this blindness coming over people. And there's guys on the internet selling it like it's what God is doing. And when they're talking, it sounds a heck more a lot like the disciples to me than the freedom that Jesus is offering. But this is touchy stuff. So if one of these stories stuck out to you, jump back to it this week. Because that's how God's word works. This is God's true and living word. And there's times when I'm the disciples in this. There's times when I've been Zacchaeus. There's times when I've been the blind guy. There's times when I've been the disciples when they're saying, stop, that's annoying me. Don't act like y'all know you've done it. It's like, I really wish they would stop that. It's so annoying, It is annoying. We don't have to go like, well, it is annoying, but this is where God is. This is the more important thing. Because The Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. That's our capstone verse, which describes all of the before stuff. All that going to Jerusalem, all that being mocked, all that being killed, and all of that rising again, and all of that giving sight to the blind, and all of that reaching out to the least of these, including the bad guy, which we don't like that, especially nowadays. But remember, Luke 11, Jesus, so I say to you, well, before I read that, that's the very last thing. Hold on. What do you see? Go back to those two questions. What do you see when you look around? You know, do you see other people as Jesus sees them? Do you see them as annoying and getting in the way and needing to be silenced or owned or whatever? I mean, whatever, how we treat each other nowadays. And what are you looking for? Are you going on, like, again, we do so much stuff online now, my mind automatically goes, are you going online looking for people fighting again? When half of them are bots anyway, you know? They're not even people. So you're like watching bots fight each other, and you're like, yeah, bot, you know, it's like, but you get all, you know, and then we look at the world, and we're like, I hate the world's so terrible, you know, and we start saying weird things about the state of the world, which sound like we're doubting God again. He's the one with the keys of sin and death, not us, not you, not me. And we say, like, what's going to come of the world today? It's like what the Bible says. Jesus is here to seek and save the lost. Do you think it was worse or better back then? No, it was probably worse. And Jesus is like, I'm operating all over the place, and especially in the least place you think. So stop telling me what I can't do. What are we looking for? Are we looking for that healing? Do you want things to get better? Or is it so much fun for everybody to be mad all the time? I'm sick of it. So you can probably tell. So I'll stop being snarky. But I want to read this from Luke 11, because it matters how you come into the thing. If you come in thinking you know it all and you're super excited that Jesus is going to whatever, that's one thing. But then if you come in knowing you're blind. Remember, like Brandon was talking about? It's like, God have mercy on me, a sinner. Like, not the other guy's like, God, thank you that you didn't make me like all these losers around here. And I'm so, you know, that kind of thing. He's like, what? You know, and then the other guy's like, God, like, I don't have anything to offer, but have mercy on me, a sinner. And Jesus is like, that guy gets it. Also a tax collector, also a bad guy. The other guy's a Pharisee, a priest, a like holy person, you know. He's praying like a jerk. This guy's praying like a real prayer. Luke 11, 9 and 10. So I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. This is Jesus talking to you now. What do you want me to do? I say to you, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Because the disciples do get it. Fast forward to the end after Jesus does all the cross stuff and he comes back. They're like, you know, he did say a couple times, you know, and that's part of his faith, that there is a hope to this. If we seek God, we'll see too, and then we'll start to see other people the way he sees them, and then things start to happen that we might actually call revival. So let's stand and sing a song together.